In the summer of 1941, nearly 6 months before Pearl Harbor, Colonel John Ohmer was facing an impossible problem. The Army Air Forces had given him responsibility for protecting aircraft manufacturing facilities along the West Coast from potential air attack. But how do you hide an entire factory? The Lockheed plant in Burbank was producing some of America's most advanced military aircraft, including the P-38 Lightning fighter. But the massive facility stretched across hundreds of acres and could be seen from miles away. Traditional camouflage might hide a gun emplacement or a small building, but disguising an industrial complex that employed thousands of workers seemed like an impossible task. That's when Ohmer had an idea that would have seemed absurd to any traditional military officer. He decided to call Hollywood. What happened next represents one of the most creative and successful deception operations in American military history. Colonel Ohmer reached out to the movie studios that dotted the Los Angeles area, seeking help from the same people who created elaborate sets and convincing illusions for the entertainment industry. What he found was a community of artists, designers, and craftsmen who had spent decades perfecting the art of making the fake look real. These were people who could build a western town on a backlot that looked authentic from any angle, who could create the illusion of vast landscapes on painted backdrops, and who understood better than anyone how to manipulate human perception. The response from Hollywood was immediate and enthusiastic. That designers from major studios volunteered their time and expertise, understanding that their unique skills could contribute to the war effort in ways that traditional military training never could. Walt Disney Studios contributed animators and artists. Warner Brothers provided set construction expertise. Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer shared their knowledge of large-scale illusion creation. These weren't just patriotic volunteers. These were professionals who had spent their careers mastering exactly the skills that the military now desperately needed, working under conditions of absolute secrecy. The Hollywood professionals began one of the most audacious camouflage projects ever attempted. Their goal wasn't simply to hide the Lockheed plant. It was to transform it into something completely different. Using techniques borrowed directly from movie production, they began construction of what appeared to be a peaceful suburban neighborhood, complete with houses, streets, lawns, and even parked cars. But this neighborhood existed only on the surface, stretched over the aircraft factory like an enormous movie set. The deception was breathtaking in its scope and attention to detail. Canvas and chicken wire were stretched across the entire factory complex and painted to look like residential streets viewed from above. Three-dimensional houses were constructed on top of the canvas, complete with fake trees, gardens, and driveways. Rubber automobiles were positioned throughout the fake neighborhood to provide the visual details that would make the illusion convincing to enemy reconnaissance aircraft. The artists even included clotheslines with laundry hanging out to dry, knowing that such everyday details would be crucial to selling the deception. But the most remarkable aspect of the project was how it maintained the illusion while keeping the factory fully operational. The canvas covering was designed with hidden openings that allowed aircraft to be moved in and out of the facility. Workers continued their shifts inside the factory, while above them stretched a complete artificial neighborhood. Delivery trucks could access the facility through carefully disguised entrances that appeared to be residential driveways from the air. The entire operation continued at full capacity, while hidden beneath what enemy pilots would see as a quiet suburban area. The technical challenges were enormous. The covering had to be strong enough to withstand California's sometimes fierce winds, yet light enough not to collapse the factory structures beneath. It had to allow for ventilation and natural lighting while maintaining the visual deception. Most challenging of all, it had to be maintainable by the factory's regular workforce. Since the Hollywood professionals couldn't remain on site indefinitely to keep up the illusion, the project's success exceeded everyone's expectations. Aerial photographs taken by American reconnaissance aircraft showed that the deception was virtually perfect from any altitude that enemy aircraft were likely to operate. The fake neighborhood looked authentic and peaceful, giving no indication of the massive industrial activity taking place beneath the surface. Even more importantly, the project demonstrated that creative thinking and artistic expertise could solve military problems that traditional approaches couldn't address. Word of the success at Lockheed spread quickly through military channels, and soon similar projects were being planned for critical facilities throughout California. Boeing's plant in Seattle received a similar treatment, transformed into what appeared to be agricultural fields complete with fake farmhouses and planted with real crops that workers tended between shifts. Douglas aircraft facilities were disguised as residential areas. Naval shipyards were made to look like commercial docks or empty land. The techniques developed by Hollywood professionals became standard operating procedure for protecting critical American industrial infrastructure. The psychological impact of these deceptions went far beyond their immediate military value. At a time when American morale was still recovering from Pearl Harbor, the sight of entire industries disappearing beneath elaborate camouflage demonstrated American ingenuity and determination in a way that inspired both military personnel and civilians. Workers at the camouflaged facilities took pride in being part of what they understood to be a crucial deception operation. The projects became symbols of American creativity and technological sophistication, but perhaps most importantly, the Hollywood camouflage projects represented a fundamental shift in how the American military thought about deception and psychological warfare. Traditional military thinking had focused on hiding things by making them blend into their surroundings. The Hollywood approach was completely different. Instead of trying to make something invisible, they made it look like something else entirely. This shift in thinking would influence American military doctrine for decades to come. The artists and craftsmen who worked on these projects brought more than just technical skills to the effort. They brought a deep understanding of human psychology and perception that proved invaluable in military applications. They understood how the human eye processes visual information, how expectation influences perception, and how small details can either support or destroy an illusion. These insights, developed in the service of entertainment, proved to have profound military applications. The collaboration between Hollywood and the military during World War II established precedents that continue to influence both industries today. Military contractors learned the value of creative thinking and artistic expertise in solving complex problems. Hollywood gained experience with large-scale technical projects that would influence post-war film production. Most importantly, both communities discovered that the boundaries between art and technology, between entertainment and national defense, were far more fluid than anyone had previously imagined. Today, when we think about the technological innovations of World War II, we usually focus on radar, jet engines, and atomic weapons. But the story of Hollywood's contribution to military camouflage reminds us that sometimes the most effective innovations come from unexpected sources. The movie industry's understanding of illusion and visual deception provided solutions to military problems that traditional engineering approaches couldn't solve. In doing so, they demonstrated that in times of national crisis, every skill and every profession can contribute to victory. The fake suburban neighborhood that concealed the Lockheed plant may have been torn down decades ago, but its legacy continues. Modern military thinking about deception, camouflage, and psychological operations still reflects lessons learned from Hollywood professionals who understood that sometimes the best way to hide something isn't to make it invisible, but to make it look like something completely different. In a war fought with the most advanced technology available, some of the most effective weapons came not from laboratories or factories, but from the imaginations of people whose job was to make dreams look real.